Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Best Overall Show. I am one of your two hosts today, Kasra Hushadar, and we have the lovely Noah Badone.
Hi.
How you doing, bud?
Um, how am I doing? Life is weird but good. I'm low energy today, so bear with me.
Yeah,
But overall, things are good. We're in a brand new world of Warhammer that is
we are.
very proving to be very interesting and confusing, which is good because that means there's lots to figure out. What about you? How are you doing, buddy?
I am good. I had a lovely weekend. It was a stag weekend where I was at a cabin on a private lake doing some kayaking and chilling and then had a really busy work week. Ran an event, not a Warhammer event, a work event, which is a lot less fun, but it was still good. Um, and yeah, I am actually really excited because I have not played a single game in this 10.5 edition, if you will. And I have an RTT this Sunday that I'm really stoked to go throw some dice and see how she goes.
Yeah. What are you most excited about in that regard?
I can't wait to win a game because of a secret mission. Like it's a silly thing that I'm really stoked about, but you know, I think I tried Gambits twice at the beginning of the edition for shits and giggles. Um, but given the nature of my Vanguard list, I do think there's going to be a lot of times where I fall behind on primary specifically, but in general, that I'm looking forward to being able to actually come back with the comeback mechanic. So we'll see if that happens, but I'm stoked
Yeah,
for it.
what I hear about the secret missions is that they are people have been having a lot of success with them being successful. You
And
know,
this
like
is why I now have a battle line unit in my list.
yeah, I think going without one is probably not a good idea.
Yeah, ill advised. Ill advised. But yeah, so that's me. That's how my weekend was. How was your weekend though? What were you up to this weekend, sir?
Well, I had a weird weekend because if those of you who know me and know my life will know that I am rarely alone. I have like six people who live in my house. I own a game store. I have a big family. I'm very rarely am I quietly alone for periods of time longer than maybe an hour or two. And my kids went to their grandparents, and my because school just got out, and my wife went to boy band weekend, so they were all gone on Thursday. So all Thursday, I was basically alone. Friday, I was alone. So I was like, you know what? We got to do something this weekend. So I went to the Laughing Dragons GT, and that was run by our wonderful, beautiful friend, Peter Venner, who is part of the local kind of 40K TO
Yeah.
community.
Peter's a
He's
bit of a
run by our,
legend. Bit of a
yeah, he's
legend.
pretty legendary. Um, he's a good dude, but he was supporting. There's a game store in Tacoma called the Laughing Dragon. They were having a big like Magic weekend too. They had rented out one of the floors of the Tacoma Convention Center, and it was pretty good. It was the last hurrah of Leviathan. It was my last event for Leviathan, and I was
It was a
playing
send off.
horse. I brought a Morkanaut because, as you had said earlier, for shits and giggles. Yeah, but we'll get into it in a little bit. But yeah, it was weird. Before we go too deep into that, I think you and I had some things we're going to talk about when we get into it. How's hobby going for you?
Hobby, I've been working on the T Sons Commission, which I've been kind of chipping away on. Right now, doing some cultists. So not the most, snazzy, sexy models in the world to be painting, but important and getting through those. I'm kind of nearing the end of this commission, so I've got 9. Like once these cultists are done, I've got 9 Zangors on disc, then a few characters, and that's when it starts getting exciting because then I got 2 Mutalith Wart Beasts and Magnus, and
Oh,
that's
new
like
Vortex Beasts are so fun to paint.
they look really cool. I am looking forward to kind of seeing what I can come up with, and in the red and kind of green fire scheme that I've created for Jack's army, like I think it's gonna look really sick. So got that. Kind of moving along. I for the RTT this weekend, I was able to like bodge up enough stuff from my semi-painted pile of things like old assault marines that never got fully painted that I'm using as jump pack intercessors, etc. That I got approved by the TO, so I didn't have to like paint any of my own stuff this week.
What event is it this weekend? Is it a RTT or a GT?
RTT. There is a local. I laugh because I know that this name has been contentiously used in other parts of the continent, but it's called 40K Fight Club.
Well, I know it's very very close to my house.
It is. It is. It's the Nerd Haven Games one.
Is it a
Great
Sunday
store.
RTT? Is it the traditional Sunday RTT?
It is the traditional Sunday RTT. So, if you live near Abbotsford, BC, it is an RTT that happens roughly the last Sunday of every month. It is hosted by none other than Play on Tabletop's Space Marine Steve, who is a lovely, lovely chap, and puts on a mean RTT. So it's 14 players is the cap that he caps out at. It's smaller store, kind of smaller area, I should say, for gaming. Bigger store. They do a lot of things, but it usually sells out, and it's usually just a good group of folks, and good terrain, good sort of RTT layout. 2.5 hour rounds, which is good. Like it keeps you moving, but yeah, I'm thrilled. I actually challenged Mubin Talati from Play on Tabletop for round 1 because I was hosting a charity tournament a few weeks back, and Mubin was there, and he was having a great time. And we were chatting, and we realized we've never played a game of 40K together, but we've been friends for like years. So we're gonna right that egregious wrong, and I'm excited for it.
Oh, do you guys do this first round do challenges?
Yeah, I as long as both players agree, then Steve tends to be pretty cool about it.
Yeah, it's I've been to a couple. It's pretty chill vibe. It's good.
Yeah, you have beaten me in a couple actually. I love when we drive over each other's borders to beat each other at Warhammer. It's a good thing.
That's true. Yeah.
How about you? What do you've been hobbying?
A little. I would say my hobby is very, very unguided and questing currently. I don't really have something I'm super excited to paint. I painted some orcs. I painted a Morkanot in like 2 days. Like how the Morkanot came to be is I wasn't sure I was going to go to the event. I decided I was going to go to the event. I last minute, my teammate and like heterosexual life partner Lee gave me a Morkanot along with some other orcs that he like primered and built, but wasn't going to get to. They were like very far down on the hobby list.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, Morkanot, let's go. So I just painted it up and literally started pulling things out of the list until I had enough blows enough that I could fit the Morkanot, and then just YOLO'd it, right? And painted it in 2 days. That was fine. It was fun because it was silly looking and very, very like outlandishly pink and blue and green and purple.
Which is so great for a Morkanot.
Yeah, of course.
It's a big, silly model. Like, let's go,
My orcs are all like pink and very bright green and blues and yellows and whatever. I'm painting a army in the factions of a specific country right now. As a component of my WTC journey. I won't really go too deeply into that because
for those Yeah, for those who are not aware, WTC list lock is what, a couple weeks away, a week and a half away.
July 14th.
July 14th is list lock, so you'll see a lot of your favorite content creators be remarkably cagey about what they think is good in the next couple weeks. Once list lock happens, I'm sure there'll be a little bit more, but
Now, being a person who owns 16 painted armies, I will loudly tell you the things I think are good or bad, but that's not going to know the field enough to know what I'm playing.
yeah, that's
Um,
fair.
but but before that, I've got so after list lock, but before WTC, I do have Tacoma Open.
Yeah,
So I'm sure there'll be some indications of what I'm taking to Tacoma, which I don't know what I'm taking to WTC for sure yet. So we don't know what that looks like, but we'll see. Part of that's because Pariah is still very, very new for everybody.
yeah, yeah.
And I'm actually like a little behind the ball because since I wasn't sure if I was going to play in Laughing Dragon, I didn't want to like dig too deeply into the new rules before I went to a GT
Yeah, that's fair. It's tough to have multiple versions of the game in your brain at the same time.
for sure. Um, other things is I did some like proof of concept painting for some GSC. I've been staring at a gnomes Blood Bowl team that I want to build and paint because it has like geese and foxes and badgers and shit.
I know the models. That is a really cool. Like I've always been Blood Bowl curious. I've played a few games of it, and I just have like lost because I rolled terribly, and that's a game that it can like ruin your life if you just roll bad
I'm
rolls
gonna have
one
a
after another.
second. I got a copy, and then another person is selling me a gnomes team for like $20. Do you want a gnomes team?
I would love a gnomes team, and we could have a gnome off.
You let I will gnome you off so hard,
I
bro.
I would love that personally. That would be hilarious. We could like, you know what? We could go on one of our so friend of the channel's mid table tactics have a wonderful streaming setup. I wonder if they'd like zoom in and let us do Blood Bowl on their stream.
Let's go.
Let's go! Hilarious.
And what else? Yeah, that's so I've got that. Then my brain is starting to be consumed with Cascade Clash
Yeah.
because for those who don't know, we just got the final go ahead that we are now a golden ticket event.
Let's go, baby. We're
Yeah,
gonna
so
send some stiff competition from the Pacific Northwest out to Worlds, baby.
yeah, it'll be cool. There's like it's a weird feeling because there's like six people who I want to win. We're gonna have one for best overall, one for best general. There's like six people who I want to win purely for selfish reasons, and that obviously that doesn't bias anything in the event.
Yeah,
But like people who I know that I want to hang out with.
totally. And like I think a big part of that is we hung out quite a lot at
Oh yeah,
Atlanta. And by the way, my fiance is so excited that you're coming. Like when you got your ticket, I think she was like almost as happy, if not happier, than you were. Um,
sick.
but yeah, so I hear you. Like it's like that. I'm sure those six people would just be like wonderful humans to spend some time with at the finals.
Yeah, like I'd love to see Donald there again. He was there last year.
He was part.
Uh,
He was an integral part of the posse.
yeah, I'd love to see Tarzan. For those of you who know who that is, he's just a real great person to spend time
Gem of
with.
a human being.
And there's a couple of people who I know have just been like hitting the grind really hard. Liam, I would love to see Liam win that event because I know how hard he's been working.
Yeah,
He's been playing his heart out. He's been painting his heart out. He's someone who that would be seen. And then there's some people that I would just like. I really want to see in the room at WCC because of the disruption. Like, I want to see Brendan McKenzie roll into WCC and just sisters the shit out of people.
he already will be. He won his golden ticket at Wet Coast.
That makes me so happy. I forgot
Yeah,
that. It's like,
you were there.
I know, but But okay, so I'm glad we came because like Brandon is one of those people that is just very. He's not like the personality that says, "I'm so good at Warhammer. Look how good
No,
I am."
no, he's not.
But he's very good at Warhammer.
So you all know Brendan McKenzie too. You just know him as McWhirp because he is in every chat, every Discord.
He
The
is.
man, the man is ubiquitous, and he is a friend of mine. He is local to me for now, although he's moving over to the island. But Brendan is going to be coming to WTC. I am really looking forward to him surprising some folks who have not played against this absolute sisters mastermind.
Yeah, especially with the new rules. I think he's gonna do great.
Yeah, he and Liam played a TTS match, and I had lunch with Liam yesterday, so I was hearing all about the horrendous abuses that sisters can casually do, and I don't even think it was an optimized list, but sounds wild.
So, who's somebody that you know from our commute from the Northwest, like someone who you think will be at the event at Cascade, that you would want to win just because you want to hang out with them, other than Liam, other than any of the ones that we've already said?
I'm gonna go and throw this out there. James Lee from Deep Strike Gang. I absolutely
Yeah,
love
James
that
is
man.
cool. Yeah,
James is good people. He he's such a sporting Warhammer player. He's like good for the community. I think, James would be one that I'd throw out there for sure. But honestly, like any of
How
the
about
usual
anybody?
suspects,
How about anybody from Rose City Ruffians?
yeah, literally
You
any
know,
single person.
Lucas, Nick, Tyler.
Like and that's what I was really about to say. Is like literally any of the folks that come to our PNW events, Canada, US, don't care. I mean, they kind of make you try to care, or they try to make you care, I should say, about what country you're from. But honestly, like, I feel more connected to the Pacific Northwest than I do Canada. I mean, that's like WTC aside, it's
We're gonna send it. We're gonna nominate a Northwest UN team next year.
seriously, Team Cascadia, let's go.
It's just eating. Let's go.
Love it, love it. But yeah, I mean, like, honestly, I just want to see more PNW folks go out, and I know in Canada especially, like the out in the central and east coast, they have a lot more tickets, a lot more events, more tickets per event, etc. So you get to see a lot more folks go. In the Pacific Northwest, we're starting to get more events with tickets. I think that's gonna be really good, and it's gonna be healthy for our meta to get exposure to some other good players from around the world. Spread, share some ideas by beating other people and losing to other people, and I think it's only going to be a good thing for our scene to have more ticket events. I know some folks some TOs that I know hesitate to apply for the golden tickets, not because they don't think they'll get them, but they worry it'll bring out kind of like the ugly side of people competing for something like that. But I don't know. I think we have done a pretty good job in this community, at least, of like self-policing the bad actors out of it. So I'm not too worried about that. And I mean, like, I was on the judging staff for the first Cascade Clash. I'll be there for the second one. And yeah, I didn't have many problems the first time. I don't foresee any problems the second time.
No, I think I think the concern of like being a premier competitive event might bring out some jerk bags. It's not completely unreasonable,
Totally.
but I think it's just like I think the majority of times I've been at an event have been at the upper levels of that event.
Yeah.
The number of people I've looked at the list and said I really don't want to play them, or I'm really not looking forward to that game, is pretty small. It's been like,
Yeah.
I mean, there's usually one, right? Like in the top 16, there's usually one that you're like, yeah, I don't really like that person's salty or that person's, try hard or whatever. Um, we can go back to this a little bit because I think it's going to be relevant when we talk about the GT. So, talking about do you want to talk about anything else before we jump into the GT?
No, I'm good to go.
So me and Cash were talking about what we're going to talk about this, and originally he was like, "You won at a tournament. Let's talk about that." And I was like, you know, I feel like as it's the last event of Leviathan, I don't feel like the matchups, like the actual like mechanics and rules of the game of like what happened are that relevant. But it is. I did surprisingly have a like smorgasbord of like sportsmanship, like kind of um, things happen along all five of my
Hmm.
games. And I figured we could just like go game to game. I give a real quick overview of what it was like,
Sure.
and we could talk about a topic and we'll pop it.
Sounds good.
So the first one was I played into Vanguard. So okay, the list I brought was it's pretty much my standard Green Tide, except I dropped the Mega Knob. So it's 5 characters, it's 2 bosses, 2 pain boys, a weird boy, 110 boys, and then I brought a Morkanaut for fun, and a squad of commandos, and a squad of Grots, and a battle.
Yeah.
Right. So
Pretty standard stuff outside of the Morkanaut.
yeah, and the Morkanaut literally, as we'll talk about, was like playing 300 points down, which made all of my games closer than they have ever been at any of my events, which I think
Yeah.
actually helps highlight some of the things we're going to talk about. So my first opponent was a Vanguard player, so I came up to the table, and like he already seemed like not quite into it. He was talking to me about how his significant other was supposed to be there with him, and they weren't able to make the trip for some reason, and like it just his heart wasn't in it, right?
Yeah.
And he was playing Vanguard, and
Vanguard Space Marines to be specific.
Vanguard Space Marines, and he had the displeasure of. So I have played Cass several times. I talk to Cass a lot. I pay attention to what Cass is doing and why he's doing things with his list. I feel like I know Vanguard better than most players who play Vanguard Marines because I've been beat in the face with it enough, right?
Yeah, and having seen the way in which you come at me, yes, you do understand this.
And so, just like I'll say about like people might hear me joke about like, oh, I'm playing against GSC, but he wasn't Tyler Bortel or Alex McDougall, so I was fine.
Yeah.
And obviously, there are other players who also play those armies good, but that's like the joke. And so I came, and he just wasn't Castro Husadar, right? So like he played the game a little timid from the beginning, and ceded some space, and I was able to take an early momentum, and he conceded top of 3, bottom of 2, kind of.
Yeah.
So we're about 45 minutes an hour into the game. He's like, I see the writing on the wall, man. It's fine. He's like, it's not you, but this isn't really fun to play. It's like very mismatched right now as far as like how powerful you're listed and how powerful mine is. So I'm okay. Just
call it there.
And he was very obviously not super happy about it. There wasn't anything that I did. I gave him go backs that he didn't take. Right, like he was like, oh, I mean, he was like, oh, you can change it. So no, I need to, I just need to suffer for it. I'm like, okay. The thing about playing against Tide is there's not really against a lot of like board control lists. If you make a mistake, the game is over.
Yeah.
Right. Like if you cede too much ground, if you let someone get positioned correctly, it's done. Right.
Yeah, it's too uphill to come back from, for sure.
So I mean, this is my first thing. Is like, what do you do, Cass, when someone's just not obviously having a good time, and or like, I mean, obviously the most extreme is they concede on the spot, but like, how do you emotionally respond to that yourself? If someone says like, I'm not having fun, I don't want to play.
It's funny that you are asking me this because you're literally the second person who's asked me this today. I'm not going to name names because it's a friend, and sure. Like I feel like I'm a lot of people's 40K therapist. I'm a lot of people's therapist, actually. I'm not a therapist. I have no qualifications. But
a coaching service you can offer.
I mean, I do coach, but in many different ways. But like, how do you respond to someone having a negative experience playing you, and by conceding, walking away from the table, like emotionally speaking, I don't like it. It hurts me, even if I know I did nothing wrong.
Yeah.
it's still, and I think you're the same as me in the sense that like you're a really empathetic person. Like you feel other people's feelings too. Not everyone's like that, and honestly, like lucky are the ones that aren't. But when you really do kind of care a lot what that other side is feeling, it can be a hard thing to come back from. Like especially round one, you know. But what I like to do is kind of take a step back because I think as human beings we have a tendency to put a lot on ourselves when really like no one's thinking about you. Really, like it wasn't about you, Noah. It was like already from the get-go, you know, there was factors that had put him in a not great optimal mood, and all you can do is your best to be a gracious opponent, give that sort of take back, and it's up to them whether they take it or not. Like take backs where there is no new information, and you know we're still playing a competitive game at the end of the day. Um, you know, there's certain things I would take into account, like if battle points don't matter and it's a win loss thing, I'd play a game differently against someone who I could tell is having a bad time than I might otherwise. You know, and that's not to say that it's necessarily even the right thing. That's just kind of how I'd approach it. Um, Try to celebrate their wins when they get them, but then sometimes read the room. You know, some people don't want that. Some people just kind of want to be salty about it, are going to be salty about it no matter what you say. And the best thing you can do is not engage with their saltiness. Let them get it out if that is the way they're feeling. If they choose to end the game, that's their prerogative. They're allowed to do that. But it definitely is negatively impactful, and I think that you have to kind of do the soul searching, and this is why I have certain things I'll do at the beginning of every game, like talk about my dice etiquette, etc. There's certain things I like to just get out there right off the bat, because if things sour, I can at least know that I held myself to a standard that has earned me a reputation of being a good guy and a good player. So if you can do that, it still hurts, but you can rest assured knowing that you did everything you could in your power to kind of make sure that it was an enjoyable experience for both.
Yeah, I think that was the best answer anyone could give to that question. That's really good, guys. I mean, as always, you are very emotionally aware, and I think you're right. You have to like accept the fact that it's not you, be as polite as you can, but move on. So that game ended. I went and just kind of went and fanboyed for a couple of my friends who were playing. Sat and ate my lunch, chilled out, played some Magic on my phone. I think that's another thing that sucks is like having to when the games are done so fast. Yeah, I had to sit there for 2 hours and then we had an hour lunch, so I had like a whole round of just like dead space.
Yeah.
And one of the things I like about 40K is it keeps your mind engaged while you're playing. Just you're in it. So I went on to my round two, and I played against my wonderful teammate Chuck Arnett, who is an amazing hobbyist. He was playing his non-metallic metal, kind of comic book inspired Votann with bright yellow and shit. It looked great. And Votann are one of the armies that can like actually put enough hurt on Tide.
They have the right they have the data sheet strength, because like Votann are a really straightforward army, but like the data sheets slap. And that's what you need to really be able to chew through an army like Green Tide.
Yeah, they very, very handily pass the stat check. That is true.
Yeah.
And so then it comes down to like outplaying each other. And Chuck is really good. The subject for this one isn't necessarily like the game was so close. One of the reasons the game was close was that Chuck is really good. The other reason that this game was close is because I haven't gotten this tilted, flustered because of a game in a very long time. Maybe I was having an off week, but I mean, for anyone who's played me or seen me play a lot, you know that it is very hard. I am unflappable. I will not be flapped, right? Even when things go real south, I take a step back, take a deep breath, I look at the game, and I move forward. I love playing from behind, so it doesn't bug me that much. And even playing against players who are being, assholes, it doesn't bug me very much.
Yeah. Honestly, I consider some of the the ways that I've seen you handle those situations, best practices. Like I wish I could do some of those approaches. Yeah,
I feel the same for you as far as your like the way you talk about and professionally approach the game, like your dice etiquette. You're very pro when it comes to like how you handle like the administration of the game, right? Uh, so I set up a turn. So I had secondaries that like if I were to do my to jump, easily achieve 10 points on my secondary. And I'm like, okay, cool. And we're playing the mission where you double score at the very end of the game. And I was like, all right, here we go. And I roll my to jump, and I roll a 1, and I take D6 mortals on my guys. I roll like a 2, I lose 2 guys. Take a deep breath, let it go. That does mean that I'm only now I'm gonna have to I'm really only getting like 3 or 4 points on my secondaries this turn.
Yeah.
I have to change my plan a little bit. I can't charge with my commandos now. Things just kind of change. Make some charges. I set some stuff up for a good turn. Chuck has a good turn. He comes over to me. And again, I'm all set up. I'm in position. It's a little shittier now because like Chuck has like reacted some of my movements.
Yeah.
And the board, it's kind of like I now need to like pull it back. I also forget to call the law at the beginning of the turn, which I told him I was going to, but I never declared it. So there was like a weirdness. Like there was like basically at the end of that end of his turn, realizing that like I just went a whole turn without the law benefits, which didn't really affect too much. He let me roll my attacks at the very end, but that's it. So it wasn't like it was weird. But then I failed to jump again. So then again, and now I'm like really behind. I'm like playing to my absolute maximum points. I'm putting him on low scoring turns whenever I can. He's scoring pretty good secondary, and we're both making each other think super hard. This is like the flustering gets to me, and I start like playing pretty slow. Normally, I'm in 3-hour rounds. I end the game with 20 minutes or so left in my clock.
Yeah,
and he and I did not finish the game. We got to round 4 because they had a rule at this event that if your combined total time was less than 15 minutes, you weren't allowed to start another round. And they came around to the table and asked us what round we were on and told us no points for the next round. So turn 3 came around, and I failed to jump again. So I got my to jump on 4. I had to use a regen on that unit. And I was literally just playing with scraps from behind. I went second, so that gave me a little bit of advantage. I was able to hold 3 objectives at the end, and it was a 5-point game at the end of the game.
Yeah, wow.
Right. So, and part of that, Chuck was a great sport who's super cool with me, but he actually made me stop at one point. He's like, "No, stop." He's like, "I have not seen you like this before, so you're going to stop, take a breath, because I think you're going to start making more bad decisions."
Yeah.
And I usually don't get like that, but Chuck was very cool with me about it. Chuck's a very adulty adult when he meets he is probably one of the most mature in a good way people I know.
100%.
He's fun and playful, but he'll no, this is adult time, and he was very much no, it's time to be an adult. Stop it.
You got a little timeout by Chuck.
I did.
It's good though.
Chuck is an imposing figure, both from his hobby capability. He's good at the game, but he's also gigantic.
He is.
Super tall.
Yeah.
Right. And he could, if anyone could put me in timeout, Chuck could definitely put me in timeout.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. 100%.
So
he has a calming energy about him too, I'll say.
He does. He's one of my favorite opponents. So what about you, man? You're in the situation, things that are based on die rolls are just going bad in an astronomically non-math way. You're not out of the game, right?
Yeah.
I think that's worse too. If you're out of the game, if the things have gone so bad, there's no way.
You can laugh about it. You can kind of laugh about it. Yeah.
But when you're still on the edge of playing the game.
So, I do tend to have swingy luck. I'm not gonna say I have bad luck, but I have swingy luck. I don't roll averages. You and I were talking earlier about how I have a spreadsheet on my phone with like the math for all of my units
Yeah.
shooting at just about every unit in the game, and I read it before bed every night.
Say your
I
prayers, Almost Dominus.
I do because I need to know the bands of like probability because it doesn't work for me that way normally. Like I'll go above, I'll go below, but when things truly are just going against you, I remind myself, and it's like I'm a human being. I'm not gonna pretend like I've never gotten pissed off at my dice, but I I remember what it feels like to have an angry opponent loudly be mad at their dice. It doesn't feel great being on the other side of
Nah,
that.
it's not fun.
And you know, like I think about this very hard because like I'm not just representing me. Like I just play Warhammer. I sell software. Like my living is not tied to this game. But my wonderful friends and teammates who allow me to wear their jersey are. And so I really have to be a mindful ambassador of Art of War, of Team Canada. I signed documents saying that I would be, so like I take it really seriously. And you know what? At the end of the day, it's just a game. And I remind myself about that when the dice are going horribly against me. And I've gotten a little bit like, for fuck's sakes, like, are you fucking kidding me? And I'll look at my opponent and I will say, I'm sorry. I'm not mad at you. I'm mad at my dice. I want you to know, like, I'm having a great time with you, but fuck me running. Like, that's about the extent of it. And it can swing both ways. Honestly, Josh Bagwell and I played round 4 of 2 tournaments back to back. So 2 majors.
Also played Josh round 4 at this event, which I'll talk to you about when we get there.
So at Wet Coast, I played against him, and I put so much firepower into one of his Catans, the Nightbringer, actually. And I did nothing. And then he like promptly just killed my entire Calgar unit with contemptuous ease. And like it was just like it was ridiculous. I couldn't make a save to save my life. Like I failed a 5-inch charge. Just nonsense was happening. And the dice were just like really against me. And I did get a little frustrated. And Josh is a friend, so I was like, listen, Josh, I love you. I'm sorry. Like I realize I'm being mad at my dice. It's not you. It's me. I think communication is very clear. Like, you have to be very clear about it. And it doesn't wipe the slate clean. It still sucks for your opponent. But you just got to be mindful of it, right? Mm-hmm. But then, like, fast forward to Storm of Silence, and I'm playing Josh, and it was the polar opposite. The poor bastard never stood a chance because, like, I killed 2 Satan in one turn, like, I kind of planned on killing 1, but I accidentally killed 2. And then he moved his Void Dragon, and I overwatched with Calgar's unit of Eradicators that have lethal hits, so I just need to like hit on 6s, and I have rerolls. I rolled 7 dice. I rolled 5 6s. I rerolled those 2 dice, 6s. I murdered the Void Dragon from full health. Like that, And Josh was like, oh. I really appreciate how he manages this too, because he just kind of said like, oh wow, I did not.
Yeah, I love Josh.
I love Josh, yeah. So like, and I could tell it affected him the same way it affected me. Like I was not going to hold him to a higher standard than I hold myself, So like he was flustered too. It happens. We're human beings. It's rough. But like I think it's important to just keep in mind we play a dice game. And whatever the math says should happen isn't a guarantee. And sometimes you're just going to roll all the ones. The best thing you can do is remember that this is a game. You're in it for the long haul, and no single event is going to change, make or break your Warhammer hobby enjoyment as a whole. Unless you go really, really, like, you take it really poorly and you make it a problem.
Yeah.
So I don't think you did that. I think it's really good that we get to play in like a wonderful community with lovely people that know us, that get to know us, and understand like, hey, Noah, take a minute because you're just gonna make more angry bad decisions. you know?
Yeah, and I don't usually get that way too. I was just a little disappointed in myself, but I think it was a good kind of like it's a good wake up call, like a good like reset.
And I think it's easy to lose sight of the fact that like we are human beings and life is hard outside of Warhammer. And despite our best efforts, sometimes life can bleed into Warhammer and, it's going to impact your mood. It's going to impact how you react to things. I know before my weekend on the lake, I was at my wit's end. My nerves were frayed. I was ready, like, if someone cut me off in traffic, I was ready to, like, Mad Max them off the road. I didn't. But, like, in my heart. So sometimes shit gets to you, and that's okay. But you got to do exactly what you're doing right now, which is like take it to heart that hey, I'm a human. I'm not proud of how it made me feel, but you think it through, you address it, and you don't repeat it, and you don't make it someone else's problem. I think that's the most important part.
Yeah, I really agree. I think that was well said. So my third round, and the next stop on our smorgasbord is kind of an interesting situation. So he was 2-0 as well. He was playing Imperial Knights. He was playing Double Lancer. Double Lancer, Calidus, 2 squads of Space Cops, not Space Cops, Footmen.
Yeah.
And a couple Warglaves, a couple Helmets. And, like, I have a pretty good track record into both Knights lists, both Knight types with Tide. I think people think it's favored for Chaos Knights. I haven't had that experience with my Tide. I definitely
you also play Knights, so you know how to dismantle that army. Like that's an advantage
for sure. Yeah, I do definitely like me some big stompy metal boys. So and he's playing Knight, and I just like knew based on the mission, the killing speed, like there's no way that he can't push me on primary. Secondary is not going to matter. There's just no way, right?
Yeah.
And so I stage up, and then as we get to play, I can tell that like he's one of those players who is like up and coming. He's starting to win lots of games, but he's not like winning events yet, and he's kind of at this level where I think like winning right now is very important to him.
Yeah.
And I have my Morkanaut staged, and it's the turn where I'm going time to come out. I move the Morkanaut and to get lines of sight, and I go, oh, I don't have any lines of sight. And I notice like a twitch, and I don't know this for sure. Obviously, this is just my perception. I saw like a twitch of where he was looking, and then I didn't think of anything. I move it back. I advanced on the Morkanaut, I move my Morkanaut up. And then as I'm being ready to do so, I look over and I realize his Lancer is unlocking the terrain. And I had said, oh, I don't have any lines of sight. I believe what happened, and I'm not really accusing him of anything, just the perception, was that I said something out loud. He understood that wasn't true, kept his mouth shut because he didn't want his Lancer to get shot. Then let me make an action. When I realized, that, hey, can I put my Lancer back there? She was like, oh, you already rolled the die. You already rolled the advanced die. But like I didn't do anything else based on the roll of that advanced die. So like nothing else had changed.
Yeah.
And I tried to explain to him that like that's an argument that like if you don't want me to do it, that's fine. But the argument of you already rolled the die doesn't actually mean anything. Since I already rolled the dice, no other action has occurred. So, and as long as I'm not,
and it's not like if you rolled a higher roll, you would have been able to do something versus a lower roll. Like you were just like, oh well, if I can't see anything, I'm advancing. Sure,
right.
Yeah.
He was very adamant to not let me, and I think he had thought he had kind of like gotten away with his unit being okay. And I'm gonna say internally, I'm not super proud of what happened next. We had a good, polite game back and forth, but on the inside, previously I had said, hey, I'm going to let the guy score as high as he wants. I'm going to score a little bit higher than him. We'll use that as a good learning experience in the game. Let him play with his Knights. At some points, I'm not going to play this. I'm not going to try to. There's two ways that
like,
either tanking someone else's score or just knowing that you're going to outpace their score and you don't have to think their score.
Yeah.
One is definitely more enjoyable to play against than the other.
Correct.
And if you argue, hey, always play your best, then like for instance in teams, 100%.
It's all about the differential.
Score and go up differential.
Absolutely.
But in singles, especially singles playing against people who are different skill levels, I think it's totally, if you can 100% guarantee you're going to win, I think it's totally reasonable to win by a point and let your opponent score up.
Yeah.
I mean, if it gets out of your control, then that's your fault, right? Like if they end up winning excellently, then
And hey, people can surprise you in like a good way and pull it out. And I've had those games go that way, and I'm like almost as excited for my opponent as they are, But
sure. In this one, my brain went immediately to, I'm going to put you in the dirt, and so I threw a 20 man onto his objective that had the Lancer, and for the rest of the game, I made my goal that he was never going to score that primary. Like he'd kill me down, I'd regrow onto it, and then I flooded all the other things. So basically, what a game that was hopefully going to be like an 80 to 90 game ended up being like a 91 to 60.
Yeah.
Right? Where he didn't get to achieve any of the things he really wanted to achieve because I was just like intentionally like subverting all of his attempts. It was a little petty and spiteful on my part. And so in reflection, I kind of feel like he did something that I would agree with. And while I did let him still take go backs and stuff throughout the game. Like I didn't change that style I was playing.
Yeah.
I did, however, make a goal to like kind of make his play experience less enjoyable. I didn't think of it like that until afterwards, so I look back at it.
Yeah.
But like, what's your take on like eye for an eye situations in games, right? Where you're it's a little different than when your opponent is not playing by intent. And now you're not playing in a by intent game because you're playing a game where no one's giving anyone any benefit of the doubt. But like, is there a point when people play a certain way that you switch modes, and how do you think about that?
Yeah, and I think it comes in two flavors. Like the switch does exist for sure. It comes in two flavors. One of them is if I suspect that they're cheating. Like this is a situation.
Yeah.
If I suspect that they're cheating, or are like angle shooting and are really like they're gonna win unless I argue everything and make this a totally just miserable experience, I will just literally stop the game and I'll say, you win. You obviously care about this an unhealthy amount that I don't. Here's my pin for BCP. Put whatever score you think. I'm out. I'm not going to waste 3 hours of my life for this. Have I had to do that with any real frequency? No, not really. Like it's happened maybe once or twice in the 3 years of me aggressively playing competitive Warhammer, a ton of games 3 years in a row. So that's the rare version. That's the saltiest flavor of it, let's call it. But in an instance where, I play a very, you and I have played many games, there is a lot of goodwill, I would say, that we start the game with.
Mm-hmm.
We expect a little bit back, I tend to be more like your first opponent where it's like, no, I need to suffer the consequences for my actions more often than not. Unless it's like nothing's changed. Can I take this back situation like yours? I would take that back, But I'll actually, I guess there's three flavors because this happened at Wet Coast. Game 1, I was moving quickly. It had been a minute, and my opponent was a really wily Tyranid player. He was playing a really tight game, and he the little shit was beating me. He was playing a really good game, and I'm usually really diligent about it, but I didn't say that this unit's going up and I just drew my cards instinctively, and I saw the card, and I was like, oh, fuck. You can tell me to go fuck myself, but I meant to do this. And he looked at me and he said, you drew the card. And I'm like, totally fair. Totally fair. Because I now had information that I didn't have before. That doesn't flip the switch for me. I was like, you know what? That's on me. In a situation where it's no new information, they were even not obfuscating, but not being the type of player I would be about it. Where, no, you can see that guy for sure. I'm touching the thing. You know, at that point, the serious pants come on, and I don't think it's spite. Although I do love spite, but like, I think the motivator there. I'm a very spite motivated person. A lot of things I do, like I get out of
I could be petty too, for sure.
For sure, but I don't think it's being petty. It's there's a social contract in this game, and we're gonna play a certain way. And if you have now, in my opinion of my side of my view of the social contract, have violated that in any way, shape, or form, I'm gonna match you. So like, oh, you didn't give me that take back. Like, okay, that's fully within your remit. Yes, I'm going to go for the throat. You know, like I'm good at this game, and you have now shown me that winning is more important to you than having that social contract. Okay, I'm going to try to beat you because I don't want you to think that this is the optimal way to play this game in this community. So, like, yeah, I'm going to try to beat you. But where I think you and I differ, I think you're softer than me on this because no more takebacks then. Like, I mean, again, you know, like, I normally am, I'll let you go back a turn almost. Like, I don't really care most of the time because I don't want to beat you because you made a mistake. I want to beat you because I beat you. Right? Yeah. Like, I want to beat the best version of you. I don't want to beat, you know, oh, you fucked up and you forgot this thing.
Sure.
But if you've crossed that line with me, I'm going to give you exactly what you gave me. I'm not going to be mean about it, but like the big boy pants come on, let's go, right? And I don't think it's great. Like in a perfect world, if we were perfect beings, we wouldn't have that sort of knee-jerk reaction. But the problem is that folks like that will do that to newer players. Folks like that will do that to players that are a bit more casual and abuse little things like that to try to get an advantage where that other person might just have a negative play experience because they don't have that extra gear that maybe you and I have because we've had like 200, 300 reps in this edition, right? Like, not everyone has that gear. So I kind of feel like it's putting them in their place to a degree. Maybe it's not the like right thing to do, but I don't know. I'm if someone knows a way to manage that without like going hard and, as you said, flipping the switch and being like, I'm gonna put this guy in the dirt, please let me know. I'm open to growth, but I'm currently not there.
Yeah, I think that's good, man. I think that was a very clear dissertation on that, like the flipping of the switch. So my round 4, no real lessons from round 4. Round 4 was against the amazing, wonderful Josh Bagwell. The lesson that is going to be really short is this. I used to hate Josh Bagwell. I used to hate playing Josh back in 5th edition. I did not like him. I did not like to play him. It was not fun. Josh was going through stuff at the time in his life. Josh's life changed. Josh's personality changed. Now, whenever I play Josh, I'm happy to see Josh. Happy to see him win. Happy to play against him. He's kind. He's smart. He's very good at the game. He's very meticulous. He knows his army. He's a wonderful opponent. So what I'll say is, like, people can change. Yeah. And I think there's a habit in 40K to like once you do something wrong, once you're an asshole forever. Once you're a cheater forever. I think their redemption arcs exist in 40K, and I think it's really important to let them happen.
I agree. And I think it's funny. This came up at Charity Hammer last year because I played Josh a bunch, but I didn't play back then. And so I only met this wonderful version of Josh that we all know and love. And so it was so like I went to him and I'm like, are you serious? Like, really? You were this problem player that like people didn't like? And he's fully, he will admit he wasn't like the kind of player that he wanted to be and that he is now. And yeah, I think it's important that we don't write people off because again, like we are playing a game that is a social contract that takes some level of emotional intelligence. It takes some level of emotional stability, and we're rolling dice. Like, dice can be fickle. We can make a mistake. We're human beings, right? It's important to leave a path for redemption. And yeah, there's going to be times where, like, someone is banned for a period of time or for, like, in perpetuity. But I think that the community needs to have some sort of that needs to leave some room for people to change for the better. Because
Sure.
you can't just write people off, without like it being proven multiple times that that person is acting in bad faith. But I think for the folks that really like dedicate themselves to making that positive change, like it's possible. We've seen it, and yeah, Josh Bagwell is one of my favorite human
Yeah,
beings.
he's a staple, man. When we have
I
charity
love the
hammer, he
guy.
cooks burgers. He's always there to help. He's always, if he's early in an event, he helps set up terrain. He's just a good dude, and
Yeah,
he's
just
really
a
good
fantastic
now.
guy.
He's like
Yeah,
really good.
I like. It's never a dull moment playing Josh because like you better bring your A game.
No, he's very calm while he plays, which I
Yeah,
really like.
yeah,
He's calm. There's a lot going on below the surface. He's very placid on the front. A lot of machinations. He's like a Necron. There, machinations, aeons, across time going on behind his eyes. But he's just like staring at you, waiting. And then he's like, "Okay, cool. Are you done? I'm rapid ingressing. Are you done? I'm heroic intervention." I'm like, oh my god, stop beating the shit out of me, Josh. We had a really great back and forth game, and it was amazing. Which brings me to my last game against Jason Ryder from Army Esports.
yeah,
Jason is also a person that like has had a history a long time ago, whereas maybe there's people who weren't the biggest fans. Jason has done a really good job of being on the up and up, playing well. He's a good player. He's been consistently kind of playing the same lists. Um, the thing about I think playing with Jason though is like, so this is a kind of an interesting thing for me is outside of the game, me, Linton, all joking and laughing. We're all military vets, so we're all giggling about stupid shit and giving shit about being in the army. And great, comfortable dynamic. We
yeah,
get to the table. He's very no nonsense business, but still seeming really relaxed. I asked him out of the rules for his list, and he opens his book to the detachment page and hands me his book. And I'm like, "Can't you describe it?" He's like, "All the rules right there, man." And like, this is someone I consider a friend, at the thing. But he has a very specific way he plays the game. Definitely within the rules, definitely within the social construct, but still not necessarily what I am specifically, like not the way I play the game a lot of the time. For
yeah,
instance, I would explain all my rules to someone. He just handed me his book.
yeah.
So, and I think, if you didn't think he was on the up and up, you'd believe that was like giving the onus to you to get gotcha, right? Like, he didn't let me get gotcha. He was super cool about things.
No, and I've played Jason before too, and
Yeah.
it's interesting that you say like, I think it's just it comes down to like communication styles.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any ill intent. Like I had a great game
No,
with
I
him.
didn't think there
We
was
were
either.
laughing,
That's
we were joking.
definitely not what I'm saying. Jason did
Yeah,
great. Our game was amazing. But, one good turn deserves another. So I just clocked it to me and read his rules on my clock and just was like, we're just going to sit here and wait for me while I'm reading your rules. And I read his rules and I confirmed some stuff with him and we moved on.
yeah,
And it was fine. He's playing 30 Warp Talon, super abusive, and then 2
What
Lords of
detachment was it? I'm curious. I was curious what Jason was going to
Oh,
do.
he's playing. He's playing the Raiders one, the advance and charge.
Yeah, yeah,
And he's playing 30 Warp Talons and 2 Lords of Skull. And it was very Jason-less. Like this is his play style.
The Lord of Skulls were there. That's what I was going to ask you.
And so to his and I think this is what the thing I'm kind of saying about this is that I think you have to take every interaction, and you have to kind of give people the benefit of the doubt, and also understand that it is those contracts, so they're not all the contract terms are going to be your terms. So him, I think in the past there's been I think his communication is very direct and very minimal, and so I think that's one way he gets around it by just here's the rules. I think that's great. I think that's an okay approach. I described my rules to him, and I didn't let him get gotcha. However, he went to the point where he was set up to charge a squad with 2 squads of Warp Talons, and he needed to kill that squad, and he needed to kill the character in it to get assassinated. He charges with 1, or no, he hasn't charged it. Sorry, he set it up, and then he shoots my squad, and I'm like, okay, I'll be able to blood surge move. Are you sure you want to shoot? He goes, yeah. I said, okay, cool. So he shoots, pull a couple models, and then I blood surge into his unit that was good that he needed to make a charge with, preventing it from making a charge. He goes, oh, you can go into combat. I'm like, yeah. And I was like, you want to change it? He goes, no, we're already here, man. I'm like, okay. And I had to explain that, I thought, but it just goes down communication style, I think, is a thing that you will see recur multiple times throughout a game. And that situation was pretty game debilitating for him because he ended up killing the character with the other squad, but not the squad. And then when he bounced away, I grew onto the objective. I was off the objective, but I was able to regrow onto the objective, flip the mission, and then score a bunch of points. And then I was able to just kind of keep him on low scoring from there. And it was still, a 10, 15 point game. And it was a really good game on the up and up, but it just shows that communication style, communication clarity, those kind of things, even on the highest level, Jason's won a bunch of events. I've won a bunch of events. Even 2 people who like each other won a bunch of events who communicate in similar ways because, military stuff, you can still have misunderstandings, miscommunications, etc.
And you know what? When I was playing Jason, I'm very much like you. I'll explain the whole rule and da-da-da. But, he asked to see the rule because I think that's how his brain works.
Yeah.
And, sometimes people get offended. I don't. I was like, oh, absolutely. Here you go. I know it's bullshit. For me, it's the Vanguard nonsense of me. Haha, I'm running away. But it was he needed to see it. And then he saw it and he's like, Christ, okay. Cool. I didn't gotcha him. He didn't feel bad about it. We had a great game, etc. Like you're saying. But, I think it's important to realize, not everyone's communication styles are going to be necessarily the same as yours, or even just give people the benefit of the doubt, be flexible with them, and I think that it sounds like you guys had a good game, despite
we did.
the differences in communication, and I think that it would be kind of crazy to assume that everyone's going to communicate the same way and desire the same type of communication from you as well.
Yeah, I agree. And with that brought my Leviathan season to a close. Got to pick up best general.
Well done.
Which is cool. Tide now is going to take some nerfs, and now I'm on to figure out. I'm going to keep playing Tide in singles. What am I going to play in teams? You got your first game of Pariah Nexus coming. Your first event of Pariah Nexus coming up this weekend.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I made some notional changes to my list. I basically, I come from the school of thought that says, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I know there's going to be some changes I want to make just based on how the game has changed. But I didn't want to do anything too drastic without minimum 3 to 5 reps with my new list. So what I did was I dropped my company heroes and I replaced them with a unit of assault intercessors, just because I need that battle line in there. I don't want to give away that ability to play certain missions and the ability to be.
Are assault intercessors with jump packs battle line?
No,
Oh, that's
they are not.
only
But
on foot. As soon as you get a backpack, you're no longer battle line.
no, sir. The assault intercessors on foot with Uriel will likely do a similar role to what the company heroes did. They're a lot less durable. They actually hit a little bit better into some profiles, and they give reroll ones to wound or all wounds on objectives to Uriel. So they're interesting. But they save
How many heavy intercessors can you take in a squad?
10.
You ever thought of just like Calgar with 10 heavy intercessors?
Yes, that did run through my mind. But the problem with that, because the Calgar brick is what just goes in the middle, and I need it to be a real deterrent. And honestly, that's not a real deterrent.
Sure.
It's just a bullet sponge. With high OC, mind you, and it is battle line, but
It's like 30 strength 5 AP 1 damage shots.
Yeah, but those shots cost more than.
Oh, of course, yeah. I don't think it's good,
so yeah. I mean, I thought about it, to be honest. Like you are. This is something that crossed my mind, but I think the Melta squad is more important. So what, Uriel's kind of my counterpunch anyway, right? So now that unit is battle line. I've got the infiltrators still in the list, just because I've thoroughly enjoyed being able to block certain things out, and what people can do with Venatari is ridiculous. So I need something to help augment my chances there. But yeah, so the next thing I did was I dropped my 3rd scout unit, so I only have 2 scouts now, and I replaced that scout unit plus the extra points I saved from going down to assault intercessors for 5 jump pack assault intercessors. That was basically because one of the jobs that the scouts had was moving real fast and doing actions. Well, they can't advance in action anymore, so now we've got jump pack intercessors to move 12 and do that. Plus, they're my fast moving grenade unit, because that is now another thing you can't do when you advance. And they do mortals on the charge. So I think they give me a little bit of flexibility, a little bit of additional tool in my toolbox. We'll see. We'll see how she goes. I definitely, one thing I've considered is a Calidus, finding its way back in the list. I'm intrigued by the change to the Vect rule. I think Bjorn's going to be really cool for my Space Wolf friends, because he is the most durable Vect unit that I know of, and he can run in your face and just be like, all your strats are +1 CP.
Cypher's pretty good, just because he's cheap and small and lone up.
But lone up doesn't matter when you're trying to be within 12 inches of your opponent so much.
Fair.
That's the Calidus. I've thought about it. I'm like, okay, I can bury her in the Calgar unit, so you're not charging her. But there's an aura around them now, so you can't use fight phase stratagems as freely, which is something. Or if I want to use her offensively, I pick her up at the end of your turn, and then bam, she's down next to the unit I want to kill. And if you only have 1 CP, cool. You're not Armor of Contempting. You're not rotating ion shields. In some cases, you're not resurrecting that character, which is huge.
Are you looking at Brendan right now, in the eye,
in the soul?
Yeah, I agree. I think this is. I'm interested to see how it does. I want to hear about it. So in 2 weeks, we'll probably convene to talk about what impact Pariah has had on our life.
Yeah.
We'll have Joe back, and then I'm going to last minute plug that go check out Cascade Clash October 4th, 5th, and 6th. We're going to have hobby stuff on Friday the 4th. We're going to have a invitational that we're going to announce and talk more about in the next couple weeks. On the 4th, we're going to do the GT on the 5th and the 6th. It's going to be Prime Nexus. I'm going to have the mission pack out here in July, finalized with the missions nice and early so that people can start planning around it. And yeah, that's all I got, man.
Awesome. Well, congrats on Best General. And
Thank you.
You know what? I think that your journey through those 5 games made for a lot of interesting conversations. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, that went pretty well.
All right.
It was a
thank
weird
you,
because
everyone.
like winning was not my focus out of it. I was just like there to have fun.
I mean, yeah, I'm working on it.
Yeah. I was playing 300 points down, like, and I definitely felt it, dude. Which was kind of nice.
Yeah. It's not always fun just stomping your way over people. You know.
It did make me think that if Tide, like, is that good, 300 points down, it's probably still fine after the nerfs.
It's probably still fine. Yeah. No. Call the Horde. I think is being over sort of hyped.
The list that I keep telling people to run and that I'm running only gives up 15 on Cole.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You take 3 20-mans, and then you take a shitload of 10-mans, and you put a couple 10-mans in trucks, and you make 2 10-mans you spend for the 1 CP for the count as 10 until your next round. So and then those 2 10-mans go and work together as a 20, basically.
Yep. No,
and
as I said,
still have like all the tools, all the shenanigans.
I think it's quite overhyped, and I still think Hordes have a very interesting place in the meta.
I think 10 flash kits makes its way into my list. I talked shit on it for a while. So if you're listening, Annie,
I played against a friend of mine playing Dread Mob, and he had flash kits, and they are not a joke. That shooting hurts.
Yeah, they're pretty good. Damage 2 is pretty sick. All right, man.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thank you. Love you guys. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.